Okay, here we go, Mom. Today's topics that I'd like to talk to you about are high school. We talked about uh, birth to elementary school yesterday, so today I want to talk a little bit about high school.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit first about where you went to high school and what year you graduated.
I went to high school at Fairmont Senior High School, which was West Fairmont High in Fairmont, West Virginia, and I graduated in 1961.
Great. And what was your school mascot and what were the school colors?
School colors were royal blue and white, and the mascot was a polar bear.
Nice. Where did you live when you were in high school? Did you live at the same house all the way through high school, or did you live in multiple houses?
No, I lived in West Fairmont on Augustus Avenue with my mother and my brothers. My parents had divorced the year before, and I wanted to continue going to school at West Fairmont, but we had to move to East Fairmont, and we moved into an apartment on the east side. It was up the street from where my grandparents lived on Morgantown Avenue. It was just a small apartment, but my mother was working at Owens, so Gary and Alan and I spent a lot of time back and forth going down to Mom and Pap's, and we would have meals down there because Mother works shifts, and she wouldn't be there to cook for supper and that sort of thing. So we spent a lot of time at Mom and Pap's house.
Where did Mom and Pap live? Were they on the east side or on the west side?
They were on the east side, just right down the road from us, maybe a block or two.
So whereabouts? I know Fairmont a little bit. Where kind of with regards to like McDonald's and some of those things?
Okay, well, at that time, they were living on Morgantown Avenue. Morgantown Avenue is the street that's up where the church is, where we went to church, up by the fire station.
Got it.
Only instead of heading towards town, you went the other way. And they lived in an apartment that was right behind the clubhouse of Owens. And then, of course, the Owens factory was right in front of the apartment. So Owens had that whole block, so it was East Grafton Road and Speedway.
Right.
And then the next parallel big street would be Morgantown Avenue.
Got it.
See, and so we lived there until Pap retired. We stayed, and we did most of our things there. And then when he retired from working there at Owens, they moved down to the home that was on East Grafton Road. And because the apartment that they were living in kind of went with whoever had the job of keeping the clubhouse clean and all that. So they moved down there my senior year, and right before I started my senior year. And I liked that. We moved in with them because they had plenty of bedrooms and that sort of thing. So Gary and Alan and I and Mother and Mom and Pap, and we had the big house, but it was right down there on the East Grafton Road, right across from where Wendy's is, basically. It was right there as you come off the interstate.
So did you have your own room?
Mother and I shared a room most of the time because of the way she worked, And then Gary had a little like loft area, and Alan had a bedroom.
Okay.
And we had the bathroom, and that was all upstairs. And then we had downstairs, we had two living rooms. One we kind of called Mom and Pap's living room. The other one was for us, if we had friends over or wanted to watch, TV or something different,
Yeah. So what would you watch on TV? What were the shows you watched a lot as a kid, or with your family, or with your girlfriends?
Well, mostly did some by myself would be Bandstand. was a big thing. If I watched TV with Pap, which he loved TV, and he loved westerns. So, you know, it's back when Bonanza was starting and all that, and they got their first color TV, and ours was black and white. So I like to go in and watch with Pap, you know, the westerns.
So when Pat was home, did he pretty much get to choose what was on TV?
He was well, yeah, he liked his programs, and we kind of knew, you know, Pap's shows coming on, and he liked wrestling, pro wrestling, you know, on Saturday night. So you kind of knew that, you know, Pap got the TV that night, you know, and unless there was a ball game on or something like that, you know.
So how many channels of TV were there back then? Pretty much just ABC, NBC, and CBS?
Yeah, mainly your three channels that I remember, you know, and of course you had your local channels, and you had Pittsburgh channels.
Okay.
A couple Pittsburgh channels, Steubenville channel, but there was a Clarksburg Fairmont channel, and on Saturday mornings when I was in high school, they had dance party, kind of like a bandstand thing that Clark had, and it was in Clarksburg, and so kids would go up there, and you know, you had the same kind of thing, and it'd be televised on local television. Did
you or Dad, either of you, ever go to that?
I don't know if Daddy ever went. I never got there. I know some of my friends went, but I never got there.
Okay. So obviously, you and I, we like watching sports. Mm-hmm. Was there much sports on TV back then? Like the Pirates or the Mountaineers? Could you watch the Saturday football games?
Yeah, there was football on, there was baseball on, of course wrestling, you know, yeah, most of the sports were on TV.
Did your family sit and watch the ball games? Like if the Mountaineers were on TV?
Pap didn't, because he wasn't into sports at all, and Mom wasn't into sports. Gary now and maybe, you know, a little bit with the Pirates. They watched a little bit about baseball, and maybe a little football with the Steelers. You know, that pro thing. But mostly it was Mother and I that watched the sports stuff.
Okay. Who was your very best friend in high school?
Girl?
Yeah, or boy. I know you said you were close to your cousin, Punky.
Yeah, Punky. And Punky, of course, he lived in Bridgeport, which was about, 20 miles or so away.
Did he go to the same high school, or did he go to Bridgeport?
He went to Bridgeport.
Okay.
And, but he could drive every now and then. He'd get the car from Uncle Junior, and he'd have him come down. And we'd go out to, there was a couple different places where the kids would go and listen to music and dance and not drink, or, you know, you would have, because you didn't drink. But he would come down, and I remember him teaching me how to drive a little bit with Uncle Junior's car. Of course, if Uncle Junior knew that had happened, I'd probably been spanked and probably been killed. Anyway.
So who was your best girlfriend?
My best girlfriend was probably Linda.
Okay. And what's her last name?
Right now it's Wilt. Her maiden name was Amos.
Okay.
We were friends in 7th grade.
Okay. And did you have another close group of girlfriends as well?
Yes, I had Eileen, and I had Bonnie, and most of the girls who were in the band were friends, good friends. And then there was Esther Morgan, who was a freshman when I was a senior, or a sophomore when I was a senior, and I was kind of her, I don't know what you want to call it, but I kind of had to take her under my wing and teach her some things with band, and because she was in the band. We got along good, and with our first names being the same. So she was a real good friend.
So how did you go about selecting your friends in high school? Were they mainly band friends or?
Mainly band friends, yes.
Okay. Have you stayed friends with most of them over the years?
I've stayed friends with a lot of them, especially on Facebook now, with social media. And we have a site that's with my graduating site and class, and we get together. They try to get together every year, and since our 50th anniversary, they try to get together for a picnic and so on. But the majority were band kids, and it went with the boys and the girls.
I know, obviously, marching band's been important to me and Val. And so let's talk about marching band a little bit. What instrument did you play in marching band?
I played clarinet in the beginning, in my first, which was freshman year of band, and my sophomore year. And then we went to 2 bass drums, which meant that we needed 2 cymbal players. And band director asked me if I would like to play the cymbals and instead of clarinet for marching band, but still had my clarinet for concert band.
Okay.
Which is I agreed to do.
How big was the band?
The band was about 120.
Okay.
It was a big band.
And what type of music would you say they played?
They played more band and show music.
Okay.
We put on shows at halftime that would be more pop music or Broadway music, and majorettes would do routines, and we'd make figures and things on the field to go with the music. You know, we always had a theme.
Okay. Did you have a drum major or majorettes or a drill team, anything like that?
We had no drill team, but we did have a drum major. We had a drum majorette, and we had 10 majorettes behind her. We had no flag corps, and there were two band members that carried a banner. That was later, but at the beginning they didn't have the banner. No drill team at all, but our majorettes were very good. They were very classy, you know, they looked sharp. The majorettes wore white uniforms, you know, with short shorts, and they had epaulets that were, you know, the dark royal navy blue, and the majorette boots, and big hats, big fluffy hats, white, and they just looked just.
Did they twirl the baton and do all the spins like Valerie did, or was it more of a leading the band type?
They led the band and did some twirls in leading the band, but like for halftime shows, they would put on a routine having to do with the particular music that we were playing, like Hernando's Hideaway, and it was like a bullfight routine, and I remember then one girl was the bullfighter, but the other girls would make the circle and things for it. But they would do special routines, and every now and then we would have a special feature twirler. One year in particular, we had one girl who was very good, and she would, but not every week or not every halftime show, but she was more like a feature twirler, and but most of the time they were more, I would say, more of a dance majorette twirl people.
Okay. So your uniforms were kind of like Ohio State, more of a military type.
Military.
What color were they?
In the winter, we had winter wool blue, more of a navy blue, royal navy blue, coat and pants. And we had a white crisscross belt across the chest and around the waist. We wore white gloves. We wore spats, white spats, black shoes, and we had a black hat with a white plume. And in the summertime, we wore the same outfit except for the pants. And then we had white, almost like it wasn't really a canvas, but it was a thick pant that we had to purchase ourselves. We had to wash them and starch them and iron them ourselves. You know, and every week you had inspection too. I mean, every performance there was an inspection, you know, and you got docked and that sort of thing, and made fun of if your gloves were dirty or what have you.
Did your band memorize music, or did you carry sheet music when you played?
We memorized music.
Okay. Who was your band director?
My band director, well, I had, and to begin with, I had Mr. McConnell, Mr. Earl McConnell, and he was started in junior high, and up and probably left around the last part of the 8th grade. Mr. Earl McConnell was I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly what he played, but he went to school with my dad, and my dad knew him. He was from Mannington, and of course he knew me from Daddy. He remembered Daddy. And then after him was Mr. Moore, Walter Moore, and he was an ex-Army guy. I think he was still in the National Guard at the time, but he was like a sergeant. I mean, he would yell at you.
He was strict.
He was very, very strict, you know, and but he was very good at directing and teaching, and he was also there if you needed to talk about something. If he was a friend, he could be a friend, you know. We called him Dubby as a nickname.
Did you march in parades?
Oh, yes.
So where would the parades be? Obviously, you'd have them in Fairmont, I would assume.
Yeah.
Did you travel and go places and do
Yeah.
parades?
Yeah, we would go to like the Buckwheat Festival and the Forest Festival. Of course, all the away games. And then you would have special things that you would go to or get invited to for special parades, maybe in Wheeling or Charleston or a little further away.
They didn't have band competitions per se, did they?
Most competitions for marching band were at those festivals. They would also have marching band in the street, you know, as a parade. You didn't do a halftime show or anything like that for competition, and you were judged and got trophies for, you know, your lines and your best majorettes and all that.
So do you remember any of the rival high schools or the high schools that you would go to?
Oh, well, of course there was East Fairmont and West Fairmont. They played their games and we performed at the same stadium. And at that time, we had Farmington and Berwickville. We had Clarksburg. We had a couple schools at Clarksburg and Morgantown, Buchanan. And we would go back and forth the alternating years, whether their school came or we went there.
And you traveled via school bus to go to?
Most of the times it was a school bus. If it was very far away, we would have to rent buses.
Did you ever go anywhere really far, like to Pittsburgh or to Washington, D.C. or anywhere like that? Can you remember?
The best place, or the furthest that we went, we were invited to Atlantic City. And that was my senior year in high school. And we were invited there, and it was a 5-mile parade.
Wow.
And we spent the weekend there, and we stayed in. They had special hotels we had to stay in, and so on. We rented special buses to go, and it was a fun weekend because Mr. Moore's wife had a baby that weekend, and so we had lots of excitement with we're getting a new baby in the band. Our band won first prize or first place in certain things, and second place in certain things. I remember it was very hot, because it was in June. It was in June, but we had just graduated, but was seniors, and I was marching beside Larry. He played bass drum, and when we finished the parade after 5 miles, and of course playing your cymbals, and your arms in the heat and the sweat is running off of you. And when we finished and stopped and came at ease, Larry took his drum off of the drum strap and set it down, because he was hot too, and he just kind of set it down. We were kind of like at a grassy, at the edge of the road, and he set it down, and I was right beside him, and I passed out right over top of the drum.
Huh. But you weren't hurt or anything.
I wasn't hurt, and I come to pretty quick. They got, Larry helped me, and a couple of the other senior boys, and made sure it got the hat off and all that, And of course, Mr. Moore was there, and the chaperones, and made sure I got water and put stuff on my head and so on. But it was just because it was so hot.
Did your mom or dad or grandparents, did they come to watch you in the parades or at the football games?
My mother never came. Most of the time she worked. Plus, we didn't have a car. And so it was difficult for her. And my dad, I remember my dad coming to spring competition. And I don't know if he ever came to a football game. I do remember when I made All-State, the All-State band was in Clarksburg, and he lived in Clarksburg, and there was me and Jerry and John Christian, Esther, and another boy that made All-State, and Daddy invited us up to his home to have lunch before we went to the All-State thing, and if we needed it, to change clothes or that sort of thing. And he did come to the All-State thing also.
Okay, now, in All-State, were you playing clarinet?
I was playing bass clarinet.
Okay.
In All-State.
So, tell me your recollection of sports at your high school. Did you ever go to any of the basketball games or any of the sports things? Did the town come to football games, or was it crowded like at the East-West game, or what do you remember as far as attendance, people coming?
East-West was the biggest game. That was the big game, and because that was East Side against West Side, and the rivalry, and the whole town showed up, and the whole alumni from both schools for years and years and years and years, and so on. As far as basketball, I didn't get too many basketball games, and again, that had to do with not having transportation, and we didn't have a band that played
You didn't have a pep band or anything like that?
We didn't have that, and we really didn't have bleachers in our school for, the spectators, and we had a good team. I remember us having a good team certain years, and guys making All-State and so on. But I didn't get to go to many extracurricular activities.
Well, you went to West High School, West Fairmont. Dad went to East Fairmont.
Mm-hmm.
Who had the better football team?
It depends on what year you were talking about. I'm sure your dad would say that. I think, of course, West did.
Did it kind of go back and forth?
But
It was a close game every year?
yeah, and most of the time it was a close game, you know. But it was, I think they had a good team then too, you know. But it just probably went back and forth from each school with different years.
Yeah. Do you remember how many kids were in your graduating class? Ballpark?
I know there were over 100, but I can't remember exactly.
Okay. And Dad, do you remember how many kids were at your school? Which one was the bigger school?
West side.
West side?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what did you typically wear to high school? Like during...
To go to school?
Yeah.
Typically, wore skirts, sweaters or blouses. Sometimes you wore loafers with bobby socks. More in my senior year, you wore a flat shoe with hose,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Nothing else in particular for,
Were you allowed to wear pants or shorts?
no, you only had shorts for gym, you know,
Okay.
gym class or extracurricular.
So, what did you wear to gym class?
We had a
Your
one-piece outfit.
Okay.
One-piece jumpsuit, we called it. And, you know, just covered you from your, down to the top of your legs. It was royal blue in high school, yeah. And they were like it would blouse out like, and looks like you didn't have hips or you had more hips than you were supposed to have.
So what did the boys wear in gym class? Did they have shorts?
They just had shorts and t-shirts.
Did they say like Fairmont on them or anything like that, or was it just like a white t-shirt? Or
I think theirs had something on it. I don't remember ours saying anything. The girls, I don't remember them saying anything.
so, how did you wear your hair when you were in high school?
I wore my hair kind of shoulder length, not quite shoulder length. They're down to my shoulders. It would flip a little bit. At first, it was real short, you know, and I'm not a very good hair person as far as trying to do different things with it. But I did put curls in it, curlers, we'll wear curlers, and to do it. But most of the time, it was just kind of shoulder length.
And who cut your hair? Did you have a salon that you went to back then, or was it a family? Did your mom cut your hair? How did people? Do you remember?
No, I don't. It seemed my hair was very, very short in the 8th grade. I had almost a DA like the boys were wearing when I was about 8th grade. So I think I don't remember it getting cut very much, you know, through high school because I was letting it grow, you know.
Okay.
I'm sure I probably went to some place up the street that probably cut the bang area, you know, and that sort of thing. But as far as a continuous thing, no.
Now, did girls wear a lot of fingernail polish or stuff like that back?
I didn't, but I didn't have fingernails.
Okay.
Yeah, I bit my fingernails.
Okay.
So I didn't have fingernails.
Right.
And I wasn't too much into makeup. Some girls were. I wasn't that much. A little bit, you know, blush or powder, but no eye makeup or anything like that. Some lipstick. That was it.
So, with regards to clothes when you weren't in school, what type of clothes did you wear then?
I had pedal pushers as far as pants.
What are pedal pushers?
Pedal pushers were like capris are now. We called
Okay.
it pedal pushers then. White Keds, and, gym shoes with socks. You didn't have Nike shoes, you just had white Keds, or red, because they came in different colors for the girls. A lot of, in summertime or spring, you would have sleeveless blouses,
Mm-hmm.
Most clothing was you ironed. It wasn't t-shirt material,
Okay.
and you starched it and ironed it.
Did you wear jeans much?
Mm-mm.
Did girls wear jeans back then?
Mm-mm.
No.
No,
Did boys wear jeans?
no, not that much. It wasn't till later. But I remember them wearing different color pants, like bright blue and bright red and bright yellow pants, and they were tight, and then they had tight jeans also, down at the ankles, real tight.
Like pegged?
Yeah. Now, it seemed like the jeans more kind of went for, as they called them, the bad boys, or the jalopy kids.
Yeah.
And they were the ones with the peg pants and tight peg pants and leather jackets and white t-shirts with cigarettes in their sleeves, that sort of thing. The ones that had the bright colored pants were more either geeks or more I don't know, normal kids.
So where'd you buy your clothes? Did you make your clothes, or did you buy clothes, or was there a store that everyone shopped at? Or did you go to Morgantown? How did people shop for clothes?
No, they had, at that time, Fairmont had a lot of stores. Hartley's was a big one, Jones was a big one, Golden Brothers was a big one, and then they had other boutique stores, Levine's and Price's and so on, and different shoe stores. But most of the shopping was done there. Even your prom dresses, you didn't go out of town. You just bought your prom dress even in Fairmont.
Did you ever have a class ring?
Class ring?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I still have
You
it.
still have it?
Yes.
And did you ever have like a Letterman's jacket or a sweater?
I never had a Letterman's jacket or a sweater.
No.
No.
Now, did guys give girls their ring back then, or their Letterman jacket to ever wear?
Yes, they did both. Lots of them, I think, a lot of them didn't want to give rings away, to each other, and for fear the other person would lose them.
Okay.
A lot of the boys did. The high school boys that had letters would give girls sweaters, that they would wear, but not a lot. It kind of quit before I really got into high school. It kind of slowed down.
Did the band kids have sweaters or anything like that? Like,
band jackets or that sort of thing?
Yeah.
I know I didn't have one.
Okay. What about like things with the school name on it? Like, today everyone has Ohio State T-shirts or Dublin Jerome, where the girls went to school.
Mm-hmm.
They have all kinds of stuff with the school name on it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have things that said East Fairmont or West Fairmont, like when people would go to a sporting event or just to wear around town?
No, not that much. More than anything, you might have a pom-pom if you were having something like that. You would have pom-poms, either in blue or
Shakers.
Or shakers. Maize for blue maize with the guy at the East Fairmont, and blue and white for the girls in the West Side. But not so much any shirts so much. I think that they've changed that now. I know a lot of them, but a lot of West Side has all kind of on their sites, I know on social media, for everything.
Okay.
Even the masks now for the COVID.
So Fairmont wasn't a real big town. What was it,
About
probably 40,000 or so?
I
Is it
don't
that big?
think, maybe 22.
Okay,
25?
22,000. So, did the kids at the different schools know each other? Or did they hang out? Or did it kind of, did you mingle between schools? Did guys date girls from the other school and vice versa? Or?
I don't know that they did a lot of that. I know there was some, obviously, there was some. As far as the other schools in the county, and that would be east and west more. But the other county, or the other schools in the county, not so much. You know, you would be dating somebody from Mannington or that. It would be east or west.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I don't. I don't recall anybody that I, like in my senior year, I don't recall anybody that was dating anybody from East Side. That was my friends.
What about jobs? Kids probably had jobs when they're in high school. Did you have a job in high school?
No, I didn't have a job in high school. I mean, my job was to come home and help clean house and help cook. But
Okay.
as far as to get paid for a job, I didn't have anything like that.
Did you get anything for chores? Any type of allowance or anything like that?
No, nothing on a regular basis. But if I wanted something in particular, you know, like prom's coming up, you know, and I needed a prom dress. Well, I didn't have money for a prom dress. And Mom Muirfield would tell me that, you know, if I did such and such, you know, help wash the walls down, iron the curtains in the living room, and, you know, do the Venetian blinds, or, you know, she would help me, you know, get a dress. And and she did my senior year. My prom dress was $50, and she paid for my prom dress.
It would have been a lot of money back then.
Yes, yes.
So, what did you and your friends do for fun as a teenager?
Mostly,
Did you go to friends' houses? Did you?
we would go to Linda's house. She lived on 6th Street, right down from Fairmont Avenue. And of course, I was living on the east side, and I caught the bus, the city bus, to go back and forth. And Larry lived down around 3rd Street, and we would congregate, the kids who lived on Coleman Avenue and in that general vicinity. We would congregate at Linda's house. Linda had a younger brother and an older brother. So we had kids different ages, you know, as far as sophomores, juniors, seniors, whatever. And they had a big house, and they had one living room. It was huge, and we would always get there in time for bandstand, you know, from school. And Linda's mother was so sweet. She was a wonderful lady, and she just, the more the merrier, you know, and have fun. And she would laugh with everybody, and kids would go to her as a second mom. And but Linda's the one living room had lots of like couches and different stools and things, and we would always move the stools back and dance, and we would try and learn the new steps that were being played on bandstand, you know, and try and help each other learn them. You know,
Okay.
that's one thing we did.
So once you learned those steps,
Mm-hmm.
did you have a lot of school dances, or were there any clubs, like teenager clubs that you could go to dance, or anything like that?
No, not really. Not too many teenage clubs. You had your gym where you had your weekend
Sock hops.
sock hops. Thank you.
So that was all the time?
Pretty much every weekend you would have a sock hop. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not during the summer, but during the
Yeah.
school year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and did you go to ones at both East Fairmont and West Fairmont, or just at West Fairmont?
Just West Fairmont, because I wasn't going with anybody at East Fairmont. I didn't really know anybody at East Fairmont.
Okay. Did you and your friends drink beer or alcohol when you were in high school?
No,
No?
not me.
Did a lot of the kids?
Some of the boys did. Obviously, you know, the jalopy kid boys and, you know, the bad boys. I don't know of that many girls that did. Obviously, on prom night, there were some that did. And, you know, I don't know where they got booze, but, you know, they got beer from other people and so on. And there were stories about somebody going out with so-and-so and they ended up getting drunk, you know, and then they got sick. And, of course, but I never did that. I never did that.
Did you and your friends have a special place or places that you like to go and hang out? Like certain restaurants or...
Yeah, the park out was down on Bellevue. We went there. And there was a place out in Whitehall, out past the mall, that we used to go to, that we could dance, and they had the jukebox like in the booths where you put the dime and quarter in, and they had a place to dance. There were a couple places up in Clarksburg that kids went to, and I didn't go to them though.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
How did you get around? I know you said you took the bus to get from one side of town up to the main area of town?
To school.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd catch the bus.
The city bus?
The city bus.
Okay.
And I would go to school in the morning, and in my senior year I got off at 1 o'clock, so I was out of there earlier in my senior year. But I would sometimes walk with the kids. You know, we would walk to town. I was going with Larry at the time, and we would walk down to Linda's, of course, and I didn't have to be home at 1 o'clock. It's just I got out of school then in my senior year. But before that, when I was a sophomore, junior, we would stop at Linda's, and then Larry would walk me on into town to catch the bus to go to East Side and go home.
Did you have a curfew when you were in high school?
Midnight was my curfew, when Mother wanted to know where I was and who I was with.
Okay. So any time of year, as long as you were home by midnight, you were pretty good.
Yeah, and I was home.
Okay. Did you have any hobbies or special interests when you were a teenager?
Other than music, you know, band, I didn't have any hobbies. I did a little bit of babysitting.
To make a little bit of pocket money?
But nothing, no real hobbies that I did.
Okay.
I went to church lots of times on Wednesday evenings with Pap, and of course Sunday we'd go to church. But no, I didn't have any hobbies.
How would the people, your friends who knew you in high school, how would they describe Esther Augustus?
Now or then?
Back then.
Back then, they would probably describe me as fun, laughing, friend, sweet. I had a lot of that, sweet. Moderate student. I wasn't a, smart, good student, but I got through. In high school, I was good in junior high, but then I kind of got it out of it a little bit. I suppose that's...
Yeah. So you say you got around town by riding the bus, You walked uptown a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Did your brothers drag you anywhere? Did you hang out with them much in high
We
school?
didn't have a car.
Okay.
And Alan was not in school. Alan had quit when I was a senior, and he had already quit. He did go back, and he graduated the year after me, when he was supposed to have graduated the year before me.
Okay.
But he did go back and get he went to East Side. Gary quit school when he was 16.
Well, what were their reasons for quitting?
Gary just didn't like it.
Okay. He was running with kind of the
he got
the
with
trouble
guys.
kids, like the car kids.
Yep, he was in the jalopy club too.
What year would he have graduated from high school?
He would have graduated in 62 probably.
Okay, so was your mom pretty mad when
She was upset, yeah.
So
Yeah.
did the boys get kicked out of the house or anything when they quit school? Did Pop say, "What are you doing?" or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I mean you talk to them and that sort of thing, but I mean they always had a home and they always had a bed to come home to. But yeah, mother was very upset. My dad was upset because they quit. He kind of blamed mother for them quitting, and shame on her for not forcing them to, but here they're teenage boys, and what do you do then? He wasn't there. He had no right to say anything.
Mm-hmm. I can just imagine how that went over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there were many arguments between the boys and Daddy and Mother. Mm-hmm.
Were there any subjects or teachers that you particularly liked or disliked when you were in high school?
I did not like Miss Brown. Miss Brown, Eva, what's her name? Eva Brown, and we called her Evil May. That was her name, Eva May Brown, and we called her Evil May. and she was this little pipsqueak of a lady with short hair, and
older lady?
yeah, oh yeah, she was older. She seemed like she should have been retired years before I got there, and she taught senior English, literature, and which was required. You had grammar the first semester, and you had to have the literature the second semester. And I remember reading Julius Caesar and Shakespeare, different stories that we had to read, and then she would give us pop quizzes and things. And what was your impression of such and such? What was your opinion about such and such? And you had to answer, the question in writing. And I remember getting a paper back from her, which I flunked. And she said she didn't understand where I got that answer, And I thought that was very, it wasn't right because she was asking my opinion, What was your opinion? And so I gave my opinion of the story, and she didn't understand where I got that idea. So I didn't like her very
much. So that was Evil Brown.
Evil Brown. Evil Brown. I did not like her.
So that's funny. So were you involved in any types of clubs, or I know you said you did intramural sports.
Mm-hmm.
What intramural sports did you do?
I did some track in high school and softball in high school. In high school, other than band, I had band. Like I said, in senior year, I didn't do any because I got out of school at 1, so I just had my required subjects to take. I was in French club my sophomore year. I was in public speaking club when I was a sophomore.
Did you do yearbook or newspaper or anything like that?
No, I did not do yearbook.
Mm-hmm.
No. And I couldn't sing very well, so I wasn't involved with choir or choral groups.
So let me think here. So if you got off at 1, what time did the band practice? Did the band practice in the morning?
Mm-hmm. Man was
Before
in the
school.
morning, before school. We would practice during marching band season or football season. We met in the parking lot in downtown Fairmont underneath the bridge. And we had to be down there at 7:30,
Okay.
you know, and then we would walk, we would practice down there, and we would get out of there about 15 till 9.
Okay.
And we had to be back to school for 9 o'clock class, because 8 o'clock class, you know, was our band class.
I gotcha.
But during marching season, we had to be there at 7:30. Of course, some of the kids drove, you know, and we could get rides back to school, you know, and then you could get in the car, would get in the car, you know, or truck or whatever, whatever we had. Otherwise, we had to walk and take shortcuts through the yards and everything else to get back to school. And sometimes it was cold, you know, in the fall, you know, so at times it was, but yeah.
I think you had said your brothers got in a little bit of trouble when they were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get in any trouble with your mom or dad? And if so, how did they discipline you?
I don't ever remember getting into trouble in high school. The only thing maybe would have been when I started smoking.
Okay.
And I didn't smoke in front of my dad when I saw him, or, you know, when he came. I hid it from my mother, and definitely hid it from my grandmother.
Would they have been mad?
Oh yeah, they would have been very upset. And
But they all smoked.
well, mother and daddy did. Mom and pap didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Gary and Alan weren't smoking then either. Gary started a lot later, and Alan did too. But I remember Mommy caught me with a cigarette,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted to know how long I'd been doing that, you know, and however long it was. I told her, and she said, "Don't let your grandmother see it,"
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I hid it from Grandma for a long time. Now I'm sure Grandma probably knew,
Mm-hmm.
because she probably could smell it on me.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't know that. You know, and as far as discipline, I really didn't have discipline because I really wasn't that bad. You know.
So I take it that means did you ever break the law or get in trouble? Or did you ever come close? Can you think of anything you ever did where, well, we shouldn't be doing this, but...
No, nothing would. I can't remember doing anything that would have got me in trouble with the law. Unless maybe it was when you went out on a date and you were parking somewhere. You know, and you parked and were necking in the car.
So,
But you know, other than that.
so that's a good segue. Who was your first date?
In a car?
Yeah.
It was probably Larry in a car.
All right.
Probably.
Who was he? The person that gave you your first kiss in high school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was he your first serious boyfriend?
Yes.
Yep.
See, Larry and I were a girlfriend boyfriend in 8th grade. And so it was 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and most of junior year.
Okay.
And then we started kind of going our own little way. You know, maybe we were thinking maybe we ought to start dating. I remember he started dating or seeing another girl. We weren't going steady, per se, you know. But yet we were always together, you know. And
With him being in band too.
and being in band. And we would go to drive-in with his cousin and his wife. And, I'd go to Larry's house. His parents were very nice to me. I was just like one of them, like I was their daughter too. I mean, we were very close.
So, obviously with your dad being gone and moving around quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you probably had some difficult times in there. How'd you kind of pull yourself out of a rut when you were kind of down? Was it just being with your friends, or?
Being with friends, I would say that. And mother. Mother would say, things will get better. She would always say that. Things will be better, sleep on it, or try not to worry, or, of course she did the worrying for us.
So did she work more during the daytime when you were in high school, or more at night?
Well, it was all the time when she started working at Owens, and that was in like 58 or 9 when she started working for Owens, and it was 5 days of day shifts, 7 to 3, 5 days of 3 to 11, 5 days of 11 to 7. So, and of course she had to sleep, when during the day when she was on night shift, and so on, and so, and plus the fact my grandparents were older, and my mother took care of my grandparents too. They took care of my mother, and my mother took care of them too, and worrying about them and so on.
Did you eat most dinners together as a family?
Definitely on Sunday, but yes, we usually had supper together, and I would have breakfast lots of times with Pap, because I had to catch the bus early to get to school,
Okay.
And he was up early, and so I would eat breakfast with him usually. Lots of times Gary and Alan weren't there because they were out doing their thing, but we always, kept stuff in the oven for them, or had stuff ready for them when they came in.
So was it kind of everyone sat around the table and ate together, or was it you just got your food and you kind of went your own?
No, everyone sat around the table.
Okay.
Yeah, Mom and Pap had Grace.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were your dreams as a teenager? I mean, what'd you think things were going to end up for you after high school, or what do you think how life was going to work out for you?
Well, of course, I always wanted to get married, and I wanted to have children. That was always in there. I had hoped to someday go to college, after school. When I got out of school, I didn't really know about financial aid, which I probably could have gotten. But because my parents were together and we didn't have that much money, Mother and Pap and everything, Daddy didn't pay much child support for his children. So I just kind of thought there's no way I could even go to college because I didn't have the money. I had no idea, and I don't think my mother knew that she should go talk to somebody to see about me going to school. I didn't know who to talk to. A counselor never approached me, and I took college prep courses to go to college, but I never got to go.
Did you envision spending your whole life in Fairmont? Like, did you think that's probably what your life would be when you grew up there? Or did most kids think, I want to get out of this town?
Back then, I think they probably think that now. Back then, I think people liked Fairmont as far as that was concerned, but there weren't that many jobs as far as You know, there was Owens and there was Westinghouse as far as, but they were factory jobs, you know. And I think a lot of kids thought about going to West Virginia University as opposed to going to Fairmont State College because it was more of a teaching college for teachers, nurses. But yeah, I thought I probably would, even though my entire family was there in Fairmont. I think I probably did think I would leave Fairmont at some time.
Did a lot of kids go into the coal mines? Or not a lot?
I don't know of any that went into coal mines.
Okay.
I don't know of any. And I'm sure there probably were, but I don't know of any.
Okay. So, what would you say was the hardest thing you had to deal with as a teenager? Was it not having your dad around, or the finances? I mean, what was the hardest part about it?
I think the finances, number one, was very difficult because then Mommy had to work, and I was so used to her being home before her and Daddy split, you know, and the fact that Daddy wasn't there and the fact that I didn't have a dad living, or my dad wasn't living there with me, tends to make you want to be around other kids who are in the same predicament that you are. And so like Esther Morgan, she didn't have her dad. Holly, she didn't have her dad. Bonnie's parents were divorced. I think that's one reason we kind of loved being at Linda's house, because of her parents were there. At Larry's house, parents were there. I think that was probably the hardest thing, the fact that your dad wasn't there.
Yeah. Would you say that being a negative thing, or any other positive thing, do you think really shaped you or affected you as you went later on in life?
I think so. I think when my parents divorced, I told myself as I was going through that, it wasn't going to happen to me. You know, I wasn't ever going to get divorced. I wasn't ever going to put my kids through that. You know, I've been very fortunate. You know, Daddy and I be together for as long as we are. Not that we haven't had ups and downs and that sort of thing, but I think maybe we worked a little harder when we did have those down times. We work a little harder, try and solve it and work it out.
Do you have any other great stories about high school, or anything that you remember that you want to share, or anything you could think about? If you were going to talk to people when you say, this is how I was in high school, this is what I did. Is there any? That's kind of my last question.
Only thing is that the friends I made in high school were true friends. Was the only thing. We were close in school, and now as we graduated and made our own lives and got married and had children, there was a separation of time that you weren't in touch with people. You knew maybe an idea of how you could get in touch with them, and later on as Facebook and social media came out, you could reach them. But to make those relationships, and then after 40 years or so, and you finally get together again, and it's just like you were in high school again. The person, the two of you, you remember the same things, you talk the same way to each other, You know how to depend on the other one. You know, the laughter, you can tell when somebody's hurting. You can tell when they're sad, they're happy, you know. And I know the relationships that I have made with those classmates, those special ones, I know they're going to be there forever. Forever. You know, they're just, and I hope they feel the same way about me.
Yeah.
You know.
And you probably still can joke about Evil Brown.
Oh yes, oh yes. if I would get on Facebook right now, and on my page and ask my classmates, who remembers Evil May Brown? Oh man, you probably get. You probably get, you know, a big story from everybody.
Well, that's awesome. That's really all I had about high school.
Okay.
So I got some more questions that I'm going to pick up and go into some other subjects, but
Okay.
that's kind of high school. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Love you, Mom.
I love you too.
Love you, Dad.
Dancing fool.